I started approximately 8.5 to 9 years ago, something like that, and I've done it with different degrees of intensity across that time frame.
Cool, 8.5 years. Well, I like the idea of like knowing where the practice came from for you. Like, how did you stumble or find your way to this practice?
So I had a neighbor who told me she was doing a dance practice, and I asked her what it was like, and she got up and did about 2 or 3 seconds of the gestures and told me that the teacher was a goddess, and I was not really into that word, but she did a few mudras, and it just spoke to me. And I'm an artist, and I'd always loved the architecture and the sculptures on Indian temples and wanted to know what they meant. And as soon as I saw what she did, I asked if I could maybe come to a class.
The teacher's a goddess?
Well, she's a human, but when we dance, we try to embody goddesses. So Helen Appel, who was my first teacher, who's one of the senior students of Prajwal.
Okay. How has this practice changed your life?
It has changed my life. It's not the only thing, but I think that being within this Buddhist practice has supported and coincided with me trying to be less in resistance to the world and less in resistance to life and more with what is. I used the first 3 years as a personal practice in being non-judgmental of how things were done, because things were really different here, and just practicing I'm not judging, and I'm like, things are way more spontaneous here, and I would think, how's this going to come together, and it does. So just kind of sitting and watching and contributing, learning how much can I contribute, and then letting go of controlling it all, and it happens because there are all these people who show up and who bring what they have to bring. I could go on. Let's see, how else. Being in my body as a moving meditation as opposed to a seated meditation, I learn best through my body. Like, my body gets it to my mind and my heart, so doing a moving meditation has been joyful and healing and challenging, and kind of feeling heaven and hell and the middle ground, and power and softness, and owning it all.
Nice. When you say contribute, your contribution to the practice, to this temple, how do you mean by that?
Well, there are a few really key individuals behind this place, and then it's a lot of volunteers, and things have to happen. The garden has to be taken care of, rituals have to be done, meals, showing up to practice so that there's more than one person there. I mean, it actually is, a ritual has to happen here twice a day, 365 days a year. Is that how many days there are in a year? Yes, okay. And when the temple was blessed and that was announced by the Nepalese priest, it was like, how's that going to happen? And it's happened for 8 years. It's something I've done a little of. It's not a big part of how I choose to participate, but people find where they feel more comfortable or engaged or interested, and do the ritual or bring flowers or cook or just show up and meditate to give energy to this space. I mean, I don't even know make costumes, clean, whatever. So doing what you have to give at different times that you have to give it. Yeah.
What was your background before joining this so 8.5 years ago, where do you come from prior to this practice?
I say I'm kind of historically and ethically Jewish with a really good Christmas tree ornament collection and a Buddha in my home. And, I wasn't particularly raised with a faith. I feel like I was raised having a sense of being a minority. And the values that are part of Judaism, but I think that a lot of those values cross all religions if you get to the heart of most practices. But Buddhism has its own, because I couldn't quite I kept looking for a Jewish temple, but I didn't really relate because I wasn't raised in it, and the temples in Portland tend to use a lot of Hebrew, which I wasn't taught. And I just found my entry point here as a spiritual practice. So, I found something, especially because it's with the body, that spoke to me. So this is kind of what I've chosen to study.
Is that what you, I guess, it's both beneficial and what you value, like, as far as what you were able to do from your body's sort of perspective? Like, you were able to find your way into this practice pretty easily?
For me, if it weren't the aesthetics of the Nepalese culture, which are stunning, even if you don't know what's happening. But to me, if it weren't for the aesthetics and the beauty and power of the dance, I wouldn't have been compelled to be here for 9 years. That's my hook as an artist and as a visual person. And when people see me dance and they say that I'm transformed and that they don't sometimes recognize me, but I actually think it's still me. It just gives me access to part of me, and it's kind of like pulling it from the ground, and it's not just me. It comes from, I pull in. It's like channeling, but it's still me.
How would you, if you were like the friend that told you about this place, how would you describe this place to somebody new?
This place or the dance?
The dance, the practice, or just to invite them to come to this temple. Like, how would you describe it all?
That's too much in one. I think it's different for different people. That's why people show up for different aspects of how they participate. But wow.
Like, say if I was here, was like, oh, what are you doing tonight prior to this practice, and you were to come here and you were going to be practicing, is there a way you would describe this environment?
The dance itself, I usually say it's a moving meditation. It's like, the idea of yoga is body, mind, and spirit as one. This is body, mind, and spirit. And then when we perform aesthetics, because there's costumes and there's makeup and there's music and there's a certain amount of choreography, and it's he stumped me.
Didn't want to stump you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a difference between the practice as far as practice for yourself and performance?
For me, they are. There's a part of me that's kind of a performer, so I used to teach, and when I'd get in front of a classroom, somebody would show up, including like humor that wouldn't necessarily normally be there. Like, it wouldn't be in the copy room, but it'd show up in the classroom. Or when I lecture, stuff just comes up. Here, besides the accoutrement of the power of the costume that's transformative and the ambiance, there's like there's just like, I usually am literally kind of shaking a little bit. There's like an intensity of focus and power and responsibility, and service. And it's much more substantial for me in that performance. Like, and then there's the serendipity of like, the music isn't quite on cue, and how do you and the musician work in that moment and make it work, and trusting each other and trusting it works out. And the idea of performing as in you want it to be really as good as you can do it, but what's different for me is that we always talk of it as an offering. So it's like a dedication and a gift rather than showing off or like, look what I'm doing. It's more like, I have this I want to offer, share and offer. That's really different.
That's really good. That's a good answer. What's the most valuable thing to you about this practice? I mean, pretty much.
A lot. Yeah. And the people, being part of this community of people where we come here and we do this together and see each other's strengths and learn new dances and have continuity month after month or year after year. It's its own meals together. It's its own community.
If you were to spread the word, if you wanted to share this out to say like a public environment, is there a point that you would want to share with a great number of people about this practice?
Well, I think it'd be less about like my practice and more about what Prajwal offers and the heart of the dance, which is that it's beautiful and powerful and deep, and every single thing practically has a meaning, like every gesture, every element on your clothing. In fact, it's not one meaning, it's usually like at least 3 meanings. There's so much depth of knowledge and history and spirituality to the Sanskrit and the tones, and there's so much to learn and to respect about the tradition and the culture from which it came.
Great. Anything else you want to share?
No, I've said a lot.
Okay. Anybody else have a question for her?
Okay.